Hello everyone, it's Mhairi. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Halloween DIY video for you. Well, actually I have 3 Halloween DIYs, and the first one is an apothecary sign. You've probably seen them all over Etsy and Pinterest, but I decided it would be cheaper and more fun to make my own. Okay, let's get started. So you're going to need a few things for this tutorial. First of all, a warm drink, because autumn brings in the cold weather and I don't know about you guys, but that makes me crave hot drinks. Mine is a hazelnut chocolate with cinnamon. Okay, now for the actual craft supplies. You will need a long rectangular piece of wood or cardboard. I picked up this thin sheet of wood from Hobbycraft, and then I just went ahead and cut the edges with the scissors like so. And don't worry, I know mine are very uneven. I went back in off camera and straightened them out a bit. You are also going to need some stencils, unless you happen to be amazing at freehand, some black paint, some cream or white paint, a paintbrush, and you will also want a smaller paintbrush for the edges and the lettering, but I forgot to show that here. And lastly, you will need a pencil. Start by taking your cream or white paint and covering one side of the wood. This will take a while and may require more than one coat, so I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video just now so we aren't here for hours. But when it's done, it should look something like this. Then you can go ahead and get your smaller paintbrush and the black paint and go around the edges. Again, I'm going to speed this up because it's pretty lengthy and there's a few parts where you can't really see anything because my hands are in the way. I decided to go for a rustic look with mine, but if you want neater lines, then you could always use a ruler and or some masking tape. Leave that to dry, or if you're in a rush then run a hairdryer over it, and now it's time to stencil. I decided to stencil the word apothecary and then EST, which is short for established, and then I freehanded the date. And funny story, I actually put the wrong date. I meant to put 1918 and I put 1998, but we're just gonna roll with it, and obviously you can put whatever day you like, or none at all if you prefer. Obviously the stenciling is very light, so I apologise that you can't really see it on camera, but this is just as a guide for when you go in with your paint. If you prefer, you could paint directly into the stencil, but I find that just a bit too messy for my liking. When that's done, you are ready to go in with your smaller paintbrush and the paint. I haven't mentioned this, but I have a tremor, so smooth lines and perfect lettering is not going to happen for me even with a stencil. I've accepted my fate, but you can make yours as neat or as rustic as you like. I also went ahead and painted 2 dots before and after the word apothecary, and then a random squiggle under the established part, just for extra decoration. Then all you have to do is wait for it to dry and it's ready to hang on your wall. For the next tutorial, we are going to make a vase with some decorations. I don't really know how to describe it, so here is a quick picture of the finished product. And for this, you will need a small clear bottle. I used a glass one from Hobbycraft, an old book that you're happy to cut up, a few sticks. I used dowels from a baking store, but you can use whatever you can get your hands on. I also showed 3 here, but 2 will do. Some scissors, a couple of pine cones in different sizes, some black paint, some cream paint, some gold paint, and a paintbrush, a glue gun, and lastly some glue sticks. The first thing we're going to do is paint the bottle black. And for the first coat, I water the paint down a little. Since this takes time, I will speed this part up, but you basically just want to paint the whole bottle black, then leave it to dry. And while we wait for that to dry, we are going to paint our pine cones. You can totally freestyle at this point, but I chose to just paint about a quarter of the way down the pine cones, one in cream and the other in gold. And again, I'm just speeding that up again so that we're not sat here for an unnecessary amount of time. While you set them aside to dry, you will probably need to do a second coat on the bottle. I recommend not watering it down for the second coat, and again, just paint the whole thing. Let's speed this part up too, because my hand is in the way for most of it, and I think painting a glass bottle is pretty self-explanatory anyway. With that done and left to dry, you're going to want to cut your sticks into different lengths. I chose to do one smallish one and two a bit closer in size. And then I just twisted the dowel inside the scissors and then used my hands to snap them. I apologise that this part is kind of off camera, but I think you will still get the gist. Now you want to take your book and rip or cut out 4 pages. Make sure the pages have full text on the front and the back so there isn't any large gaps. Then you want to fold them to make a square shape and cut off the excess. Then take each square and fold it in half into a triangle. Then fold it again into a triangle. And then one last time so you have 4 triangles like so. Next up, you want to cut the triangles into a circular shape so they kind of resemble half a heart, and try to keep them roughly the same size. With that done, you want to cut off the tip of the shapes, then unfold them until you have 4 flower shapes like this. Now you want to take the flowers from largest to smallest. Cut off 1 petal of the largest, 2 of the second largest, 3 of the third largest, and 4 of the smallest. Keep the cut off pieces as you will need them for the next part. This is where you're going to want to get your glue gun out. Put a small amount of glue on one of the end petals, then stick the petal beside it on top, so that you have these cone-like shapes, and do this with all the pieces, including the petals you cut off. You will see the paper rose shape starting to take form. Since this is a tricky part of the tutorial, I will leave a link to a more in-depth tutorial on how to do paper roses in the description below. Once that is done, take one of your sticks and put a small amount of glue around the top. Again, please excuse my shaking hands. Then slide the largest petal onto the stick. You want to continue this with all the petals in order of size, except for 2 of the smaller ones which you want to keep aside, and just add more glue as needed. When you're finished, you should have something like this. You can leave it as it is, or you can curl the edges of the petals like I am doing if you wish. This may be easier using a pencil, but I just use my hands. Pop the rose into the bottle and then take another stick. Again, cover the top of the stick with hot glue. Then take one of your pine cones and stick it to it. Be warned, this might take a while to dry and you will need to hold it in place. Just keep adding more glue as you see necessary. Do the same for the second pine cone. Then take one of the discarded petals and wrap it around the base of the pine cone. And that's it. Let everything dry and put the cones and the paper rose in the bottle, and you should have something like this. Now for our final craft, you will need a small wooden box like this one that I got again in Hobbycraft, some black paint, some white paint, some gold paint, a large paintbrush, a smaller paintbrush, a gold marker pen, and then something circular. I just used another of the bottles for this. Step 1 is to paint the box. I opened mine out so that the top and bottom were facing me, then I painted it black. Pretty simple, so I will speed this part up again. Then when that was dry, I took the box, the bottle and the marker pen, and I drew a circle around the bottle on the top of the box for a moon shape, like so. Then with the marker, I freehanded the crescent moons on either side of the circle. Then I went ahead and filled in the shapes with the gold paint and a smaller paintbrush. For the rest of the design, I decided to do stars, so I used a small brush and the white paint and just did some dots around the moons, and then I painted white triangles on the corner. When that had dried, I opened the box up like so, and I painted the edges black. You could paint the whole inside black if you wanted, but I decided to leave it for now, as I might paint it a brighter colour in the future. Then I left that to dry before doing a second coat of gold on the moons, and finally painting the back part where the hinges are black as well. And here is the finished outcome. You can use it to store whatever you like. I decided to store my tarot cards inside my box, like so. And that is my 3 Halloween DIYs. If you do go ahead and make one of these, then please make sure to take pictures and tag me on my social media, which I will put in the description box below. I'd love to see your creations. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a very happy Halloween, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye for now.